So I've made a couple video essays about David Lynch that people seem to really like. They're both analyzing Mulholland Drive. You can check them out if you want and haven't seen them. But here I wanted to talk about how Lynch works in general and how art works in general and how I personally go about interpreting Lynch's films and why. Because when I analyze works of art, there's a very popular tendency on the internet that I self-consciously avoid, and that's the tendency to come up with theories, quote unquote, to say, well, what if this were the case, and X actually means Y, and up is actually down, etc., in a way that will make everything seem to fall into place like so many interlocking jigsaw pieces. We're going to explain away all the confusion. Massive Reddit posts, massive YouTube videos, promising to decipher once and for all the ultimate secrets of Mulholland Drive, Twin Peaks, Lost Highway, and the rest. Now, to be clear, I think it's really cool that there are so many people who are so invested in stuff that they love and that I love too. It's great that there's such a strong Lynch fan community without whom I wouldn't be able to make videos like this one. But I do have to say, I can't help but feel with a lot of this content, these giant explainer videos and so on, that there's a lot of, let's say, misdirected energy that ultimately is getting wasted or not used in the best way. Lynch is famously reticent when it comes to talking in an interpretive way about his own works and wants to leave things open to interpretation. But at the same time, it's clearly not, and he has said this many times in one way or another, it's clearly not that he is just sitting on all of the answers and just doesn't want anyone to have them. It's because, as I understand him, the only possible answer to the most important questions is the artwork itself. There's a passage that gives this basic idea well in Lynch's book, Catching the Big Fish. It's from the section called Ask the Idea. The epigraph to this section comes from the Hindu Upanishads, and it reads, "The form which embodies that which appeared in consciousness, that is to be held within consciousness." I'll return a little to what I think this means for Lynch when I get toward the end of what I have to say here. But already we have this emphasis on form. And form being something that can embody something that is conscious, that can give a graspable, experienceable body to something that only existed in the mind. And here's what Lynch says. The idea is the whole thing. If you stay true to the idea, it tells you everything you need to know, really. You just keep working to make it look like that idea looked, feel like it felt, sound like it sounded, and be the way it was. And it's weird because when you veer off, you sort of know it. You know when you're doing something that is not correct because it feels incorrect. It says, no, this isn't like the idea said it was. And when you're getting into it the correct way, it feels correct. It's an intuition. You think your way through. You start one place, and as you go, it gets more and more finely tuned. But all along, it's the idea talking. So this passage conveys a couple things that are really important. One is Lynch working by intuition, as I said before. Another is the emphasis on form. And the third thing is the importance of adhering to this idea, which is not reducible to something else. It needs the form that the artist gives to it. And to make my point here about why I think a lot of the film theories about Lynch's works are kind of missing the point, an analogy would be, say, a Picasso portrait from his Cubist period, where it's a portrait of a person, but that person, whatever person was there, has been radically taken apart, fragmented into these fundamental shapes that are emerging from different features of their body, being colored in a highly non-naturalistic way. And it's a highly just dynamic, exciting type of painting to look at when it's done well. Now, imagine that you see one of these Picasso portraits, and then one day you dig up a photo of the person who sat for that portrait that he painted. And then you go and show it to people standing in front of the portrait, and you say, "Here, I found it. This is the ultimate source. This is the ultimate meaning. This is what Picasso was trying to paint when he painted this portrait." That's not really a productive thing to do, because all you're doing now is you're getting us to look at and talk about a very normal, very uninteresting photo. And once you start talking about the photo enough, pretty soon you're not actually talking about the Picasso painting at all. And that easily gets left behind. And now we're not looking at the thing that Picasso had to express, the idea that he gave this form to. Instead, we're talking about something that is really very secondary and not essential. So with a lot of these Lynch explainer theories, I feel like we quickly end up talking about a hypothetical lore dump instead of paying any real attention to the sounds and images that Lynch actually created. The sounds and images just become more hints for the lore dump, more puzzle pieces that we have to fit into the reconstructed portrait. Whereas for Lynch, it's all about the sounds and the images and whether they're right or not, as opposed to what framework you can put around them in order to supposedly explain what they actually mean. Another hypothetical would be, say you found a journal that Lynch kept when he was creating Twin Peaks. And in this journal, he laid out in extreme and clear detail the entire story, the entire framework, the entire mythology, the entire lore, an explanation of every character, all their motives, etc., that went into the show. Even if such a thing existed, it would not be nearly as interesting to read as Twin Peaks is to watch. And it almost certainly wouldn't be a great work of art. And to get bogged down in it would just be to distract oneself from the great work of art that Lynch actually created. But we could even take this hypothetical a step further and say, what if we had clairvoyant access to Lynch's idea itself? It still wouldn't be better than the show it dictated to him. And this, I think, is the ultimate significance of that quote from the Upanishads, which read, I'll recall, "The form which embodies that which appeared in consciousness, that is to be held within consciousness." So that there's a progression here. It's not about getting back to the thing that appeared in consciousness. It's not about getting back to the idea. Once you've given it a form, that form is now the thing that you need to hold in your mind. As I understand it, part of what this means then is that the path of wisdom leads into the work of art, not out of it and away from it. And it's for this reason that I try to do film criticism on this channel that sticks really closely to the form of the thing, these very special artworks called movies, as we experience them.